Emily, let's talk about insurance policy limits. Break that down for me. What does that mean?
Limits is simply the amount of coverage you have from an insurance carrier to pay claims or pay the patient for any lawsuit made against you. They come in two numbers. The first number being how much the insurance company will pay per claim in a single policy period. And the second number is the aggregate. So it's how much the insurance company will pay if you were to see multiple claims in the same policy period.
So do dentists have choices on how much coverage they get?
They do, and they should look at their scope of practice or their location to kind of guide them in the amount of coverage they get. We often recommend they talk to their insurance agent, broker, or an insurance representative to decide that. And the reason being is malpractice insurance claims, the severity of them is at an all-time high. While many dentists think this might be coming from their physician and surgeon counterparts, dentists are not immune to getting high lawsuits. Anything that's, to simplify it, more invasive has historically had more lawsuits with higher demands, where a simple restoration might be a little bit lower. Think about the risk involved with severing a nerve, cracking a jaw. That's usually going to have a patient demand a higher payout than maybe, a discoloration of a tooth. And so we recommend that $2 million, $4 million is generally a safer bet, even for a general dentist. But if you are, again, oral surgery or a more surgical based practice, you should look into higher limits.
Got it. So with your recommendation to say go 2 million, 4 million, I don't want to ask you this question, but I'm guessing that means a lot of dentists have been sued and that 1 million mark has been higher than that number frequently enough.
In recent years, we've actually seen several dentists be named in lawsuits that are in that $1 million or above range. So it's definitely something dentists should be considering. It's not often, but it does happen.
What happens if I run out?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's probably what you're thinking. You're on the hook for that. If you have a lawsuit that goes above $1 million, anything left over is your responsibility to pay to the patient.
That doesn't sound like something I'd be interested in having happen to me. So hence the 2 million, 4 million,
Absolutely.
Which is what I've had for my policy for a lot of years. Let's talk about the good side of it.
Yes.
What if I don't need it? Does it roll over? Like, do I get a win next year if I was a great dentist this year and nothing bad happened?
We get this question a lot too. Dentists are like, okay, so I haven't seen a claim in 10 years. I must have 10 sets of limits. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, when you think about the policy type you purchase with malpractice, that's going to factor in the amount of limits you have year after year. So with an occurrence policy, those limits don't roll over, but they stay in place. So if you've been practicing for 30 years and you purchased an occurrence policy for 30 years, after 30 years of practicing, you have 30 separate sets of limits available to you. Where with claims made, you still pay for a policy for 30 years, but after that, you only have one set of limits available to protect you from any claims that come up from patients you saw that year and the 29 years prior.
Is that likened to whether I buy a house versus rent a house?
It's exactly like that. So we think of it as building equity or renting. Claims made, it's a use it or lose it. If you don't use those limits in that policy year, you basically give them back to the insurance company and purchase a new set the next year. Occurrence lets you build equity in your coverage.
So another great reason for occurrence is a policy because I'm very well insulated the longer I practice dentistry.
Absolutely. And we have dentists who bring up statute of limitations a lot. They say, I thought a patient only has 2 years to name me in a lawsuit after I treat them. And they try to use that as a way to maybe decide between occurrence or claims made. But we always let them know you should never do that for two big reasons. One, minors. So anybody you treat under the age of 18 has until they're 18 plus 2 to 5 years after, depending on the state, to name you in a lawsuit. The second one is discovery. So the statute of limitations does not kick in until the patient discovers the issue. Dentists should never rely on the statute of limitations as making a decision on either the set of limits they choose or the policy type they go with.
Young dentists, insurance policy limits, sounds like they really need to be aware of what's going on.
Yes.
Emily, thanks so much. That was great.